Here I am out on the road. Always have to check that by looking right into it, because I can never see. There's just a tiny little dot on this camera. Actually, a few of you will be pleased to know that I just stopped there to take delivery. I need my belt on, otherwise it ding dong will never stop. Oh boy. So the sun is just relentless. It's so bright, but I'm hoping that once I get to the road up to the house, you'll be able to see without this big shadow across my face, which was there before. But anyway, I just took delivery from Lazada of a microphone for the actual phone cam. So I'm looking forward to trying that, but I don't want to risk doing a video going back home and then find that I should have read the instructions. So anyway, on my last video, when I was talking about how things had turned in life, I was talking about running away from things and then finding out that actually you're running away from something that is tied to your tail. So the trombone, I tried to get away from being a trombone player. It just never quite happened. When I think about it now, hindsight is always, what they say, always 20/20 or 20/20. And oh boy, can you see how bright that sun is now? So I'm turning into our road, so we'll get a bit of relief. Okay, that's better, isn't it? So I don't know how long that will last, because the road goes from one direction to another. So it might change and get very bright. That's why I've still got glasses on. Not because I'm trying to be cool. So, talking about music, which I've wanted to do a video about music for a long time. We've been taking something of a break, as many of you will have noticed. Strangely and sadly in a way, but understandably, if that's not too much of a prefix for what I'm going to say, then people got tired of watching videos that were basically a sad story, even though we continue to get calls for help and continue to answer calls for help, I should have said, and some of them are hard to listen to. You know, it was bad for me. I'm going to pull over and let these people pass. There's just suddenly been a rash of motorcyclists who are all going by.
Thank you.
That's my way of thank you. I'll let them go because they're going to be going faster than me. The motorcyclists blast up this road, but I'd like this truck to last a little bit longer than, than their bikes. So I take things very easy on the road. But anyway, where was I? Meandering, as usual. I got to a point in my last video talking about music and how, yes, how things that you're running from will follow you through the rest of your life. So a failed ambition is, there's nothing deadlier than a failed ambition for putting you through it for the rest of your life. You know, so if you really want to be something you should really do your best to achieve that goal. I'm sure that I'm probably on the end of a very long line of people much wiser than I who have said that. Close the window. I've taken to doing some videos in the truck because it's a quiet environment. Surprisingly, you wouldn't think that, but I'm driving, for those who don't know, I'm driving a Ford Raptor, which is a brilliant truck. We're driving along now only a few miles an hour, just walking pace, because that's what I do on this. It's a four-wheel drive kind of road, so I don't thrash the truck, but it is incredibly quiet. It's actually running now walking speed 750 revs per minute, just going over now to 1500, and we've sped up to about 15k, but that won't last. But it's quiet, and I even have the AC blower slightly on because outside is very, very hot. But back to music, and what I found was the things that I would love to have done got sidetracked along the way. I came out of the army. I really would have loved to play jazz. Even in London there was little sort of employment for wannabe jazz players, which is how I would have to classify myself. So I spent most of my life as a top 40 cover in top 40 cover bands, where anything came into the hit parade, that was what we did. That was our program. That's what people wanted to listen to, and that was it. I played in clubs, played a lot of clubs. I played at excuse me, I played at most of the big venues as a working musician. So I didn't do the Savoy as the star act. I did it as a working musician, and that was the life that I had. During that life I studied a lot of things, mostly about spiritual things, therapy, trying to improve, has been something of a passion for me, and you have to judge what the success of that was by your own opinion. How well did I do? Who can know? But as far as music went, even though when I came out of the army, that was full blast into the 60s pop, and so many of the big names were coming from the UK or from England. And I remember, I told you in the last video that I took a job at the Pigalle, and the Pigalle was a very well-known restaurant entertainment place. So they had big names at the Pigalle, and I remember the one that I remember being told was Peggy Lee. Peggy Lee had played the Pigalle. So just stopping to let somebody go through. So it had been a prestigious gig. It was no longer. It was in its failing years, and later it closed down altogether. But anyway, I was there, and I remember the drummer coming in and talking during the break, and he was talking, and he said that he had taken a young kid for reading lessons, a drummer, and he was giving him lessons on how to read, and he said, you know, he wasn't a bad player, and he said that the lessons had gone on for a few, and then this kid came in and said, I won't be coming for lessons anymore. Don't think that I'll be needing them because our record has gone into the hit parade, and we're going to be on Ready Steady Go. So my friend said, well, good luck. But all of the pros, they're working musicians. We all nodded, and me as an onlooker, because I was only a kid myself, and they all said, yeah, he'll be back when he finds out that none of that lasts. That young drummer's name was revealed was Ringo Starr. So that's my little story of where I was touched in the very, very least possible way by someone that was doing well. Later, I watched what must have been the appearance on a very big show at that time called Ready Steady Go, and I watched the Beatles be on that show, and they were on that show, and it was their first recording, which they'd gotten into. It had been turned down by a lot of people, by the way, and it was on there. And there was a particularly, I have to say, snotty little, what can I say, a snotty little rich girl is how I would say. Kathy McGowan was how I saw it. Her name was Kathy McGowan, and she was interviewing the Beatles, and she looked over and spoke to Ringo Starr, and she pointed to, he had acne at that time, so he had a few shall we call them pimples on there. And got to tell you now, the Beatles came from Liverpool, which wow, I bet you didn't know that. They came from Liverpool. Liverpool is the home of the Scouse, or Scouser. Now, Scousers are not to be messed with. They are tough. She thought that she was going to embarrass Ringo Starr when she said to him, What's those things on your face? And he looked at her and he said, them's scabs. And she didn't quite know what to say on that. Them's scabs. In other words, get lost. So that kind of showed what the Beatles were going to be in interview. Not to be messed with. I say about scabs because or about Scousers, because when I was in the army, I actually thinking foolishly that if I transferred from the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders band into the Manchester Regiment, I'd actually get to go home. Oh, not so. It didn't happen. As soon as I transferred into the Manchester Regiment, they amalgamated it with the King's Regiment, which was, yes, you've got it, from Liverpool. So it became the King's Regiment, Manchester and Liverpool. And of course, the two bands came together, one from Liverpool and one basically from Manchester. And so I learned there that Scousers are not to be messed with. So anyway, so life went on even during the Beatles time, which was, it didn't touch me. You would think that because I was there when all of that was happening, that it really touched me. It actually, it didn't. I didn't get into the Beatles at all, and that was because I was listening to people who were doing much different kinds of music. And I can take my glasses off because I've stopped behind a big palm tree on the way up. I'm actually in the middle of a palm plantation, which I always say I go through every day on my way home. So back to the music. So what did I actually like? I didn't care much for the early, for some of the early stuff that was coming out on the hit parade, the pop market, and even though I had to play it back then, as an aside, if you played in a top 40 band, you were kind of like a social cripple, because you played every night. You played the hit parade, the most popular releases, and on your night off, if your partner, wife, wanted to go out, if you went out, there was a huge music scene going on. All the pubs had bands. Some of them were great bands, and guess what they were playing? They were playing all the stuff that you had played when you were in your employment. So sometimes this was kind of a point of ruin for me, because it didn't do much good for a partnership of any kind, whether it was marriage or not, to actually be looking for entertainment outside of what you did for a living. So every night, sometimes for 6 weeks in a row, especially with the Ray McVeigh band, we would be out working. Every night I would take my tuxedo type of dress, not a tuxedo, but bow tie and frilly front shirt and all of that, and I would dress up, look as good as it was possible, okay, and I do that every night, and then I would stand there on stage, and I would sing and play for 3 hours total to a load of people who were drinking and celebrating. So birthday parties, weddings, bar mitzvahs, all that kind, company dues. Now, when I had a night off after, say, 5 or 6 weeks on the road, do you think that I wanted to go out and listen to a band play exactly the same program that I'd been playing for 6 weeks? No, I didn't. But my partner, my wife then, had been working at the airport, and rightly enough, she wanted exactly the opposite of what I needed on my nights off. So that was the ruination of a relationship. But back to what I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed playing, I enjoyed the jazz world, and what I particularly liked, for those who would know this, I like West Coast jazz. I liked Stan Kenton, who, strictly speaking, might not be regarded as West Coast jazz, but I liked that. I liked my favourite singers. I liked my god was Mel Torme. Mel Torme to me was a god. He was the ultimate. He was the ultimate technician. Mel Torme is a good pianist, possibly a great pianist. I'm not a connoisseur of pianists, but he's a great drummer. He's a great drummer. He's a great pianist. He has what's called perfect pitch. That means if a note is played anywhere around him, he knows whether it's a B flat or an E flat or an F. He knows, because he has some kind of for some people it's a curse, because they know exactly whether the thing is an F, and if it's an F slightly flat or an F slightly, I gotta move, somebody's coming through. Actually it's Rado, my brother-in-law Rado. He's wondering what the hell I'm doing sitting here. So why would you think that that would be a curse? Well, imagine if you're sitting there and you know that something is in the key of F, and the turntable of the DJ is running slightly slow. And if it's running slightly slow, it means that an F is not quite an F. It's not quite a B flat. It's not quite a C. It's not quite any of the notes that it's supposed to be. Or if it's running a little fast, it's a little bit over the note that it's supposed to be, and it can drive you crazy. My professor of trombone, Bill Teskey, told me that often when they were playing a certain piece, he would have to ask the trumpet players to play an alternate fingering, because sometimes instruments are not perfect and a particular harmonic might be a little bit flat, but then played in a different position it would be right. On the trombone, D in the first position is often slightly down. It's slightly under what it should be. It's a fault of the instrument. Okay, so if I was playing and I played in an exercise where I could have used an alternate position and gone to fourth to get the D, then he would be looking out the window like this, and I would be playing over there, and he would say, the D in fourth, Terence, and I couldn't have gotten away with it because he could hear it, and he could hear it perfectly. So imagine what life is like for them, when for me it was like I was like some kind of social cripple, because I couldn't go to a pub and listen to them play the same stuff as I was. So that was difficult, and the jazz clubs would offer a little relief on that, you know. So what kind of stuff was I listening to? I was listening, as I said, I was listening to Mel Torme. I was listening to people like Mark Murphy, who were playing really unusual songs. The numbers that they were playing were quite different, and they were different. They were complex. And so they were not being played everywhere, you know. And there were lots of other people. There was a man called Oscar Brown Jr., and Oscar Brown Jr. was a black American. Sorry if I'm not being politically correct and calling him an African American, but even some of the African Americans, when they went to Africa, said, I'm not an African, I'm American. And they were black. So he was a black American, and he was a brilliant songwriter, and he wasn't doing Moon in June and the pretty romantic things. He was doing really unusual things, great stories, great compra. Not stories like, say, country music. Country music, I could always tell when I pulled up at the traffic lights in America and I looked across at the person in the next car, I would always be able to tell what kind of music he was playing. If he was listening to hard rock, he'd be sitting there like this and going like this. And if he was listening to the most normal that he would look is if he was listening to Burt Bacharach and you know, nice pop like that. But if he was listening to country music, he probably was listening to things where they had said things like, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to go now. Or the other one, if they were crying, if you could see that there were actually tears in their eyes, he was probably listening to something like, Daddy, don't you go so... Let me try it again. Daddy, don't you walk so fast. Daddy, don't you walk so fast. Oh, won't you slow down some, 'cause you're making me run. Daddy, don't you go so fast. And I would know. But Oscar Brown Jr. was writing these brilliant songs, and they were not Mel Torme acrobatic songs, where Mel Torme does incredible songs, which I'll try to do some of these later, but the really singable songs that with a little bit of work you could sing by Oscar Brown Jr. He did incredible titles, incredible songs. The one that I always sing in the truck, even now, we're talking about, I was listening to Oscar Brown Jr. sing this song in the 60s, and I'm still singing it, if I can get through it, that is. Permit me to introduce myself, the name is Mr. Kicks. I dwell in the dark dominions, way down by the river Styx. The devil has got me here because I'm full of wicked tricks, and I'm such a popular fella among all you lunatics. I teach a course in ruination from the devil's text. To fools who can't withstand temptation, step right up your next. I dwell in the dark dominions, way down by the river Styx. Permit me to introduce myself, the name is Mr. Kicks. Shady lady and her lover, operating undercover. She knows sin and virtue don't mix. Her mama raised her prim and proper, now wild horses couldn't stop her when she's on the manhunt for kicks. Looking for kicks, she's looking for kicks. Permit me to introduce myself, the name is Mr. Kicks. I dwell in the dark dominions, way down by the river Styx. The devil has got me here because I'm full of wicked tricks, and I'm such a popular fella among all you lunatics. I teach a course in ruination from the devil's text. To fools who can't withstand temptation, step right up your necks. I dwell in the dark dominions, way down by the river Styx. Permit me to introduce myself, the name is Mr. Kicks. Had to spit the last one out, okay? And so many people are passing now and wondering why I'm sitting here, probably thinking that I've got a girlfriend and I'm doing something terrible. Or, well, not terrible, but you understand me. So I've continued on, and I'm still in the palm plantation, and the sun is nearly going down, and there's no beautiful painted sky because there's very little cloud. Oh, maybe not, maybe over there. So I was thinking in those terms. So when I heard the Beatles going "Love, Love Me Do," it didn't seem important, not to me. But then I admit that later their songs did start to attract me, and I'll try to do some of those. Of course, what am I doing? I'm just doing a cappella. I'm just sitting in a car singing to myself and hoping somebody out there listens, which is a big hope. I've learned, however, to keep my hopes high and my expectations low. So I'm going to end off because I'm about to go up to the house, and I will let you go. I hope that this perhaps some might call it a quirky video will attract those who like my meandering videos. Okay, so thanks to those who have continued to ask me to do meandering videos, and I hope that this kind of meandering is to your liking, so that you actually get some pleasure. And I'll be discussing some of the other things about music that maybe isn't usually discussed. So, sorry, I'm negotiating one or two of the awkward places. Amazing how quiet this truck is, and I'm grateful for it, and I'm glad to have started to do some of my solo videos. Well, even with Beth, we've started to do some of the things in the truck, some of our videos, so that we have peace, and so that the sound is better, because the truck is so beautifully soundproofed inside that I'm not getting any noise from outside. You may have noticed that we have the odd dog barking here and there. Hope that doesn't get in the way. It certainly makes things hard for me to do. Yeah, I can't do any of this kind of video with a lot of interruption from dogs who are too stupid to stop barking at nothing. Thanks for looking in. I'll be back. Bye for now.